Hi guys, Alex here, and today I want to show you the camera that I picked up some time ago while I was looking for something completely different and weird, if you will. It's part quirky gadget, sometimes a powerhouse, but most importantly, 100% fun. Without further ado, this is my first Sony mirrorless camera, the Sony Alpha QX-1. Let's start with the magic at the heart of the QX1. It's a 20 megapixel sensor, it's not a full frame, obviously not the latest generation, it's not medium format or anything like that. It's the APS-C size sensor, but it's big enough to see the difference with your phone. This is no ordinary smartphone accessory. It's the real deal when it comes to photography gear. But here's the thing. This camera connects to your phone, but it isn't necessarily about replacing your phone. It's more like a creative sidekick to your phone, a way to step up your game with better low light performance, sharper details, and more control over your depth of field. So if you're someone who already enjoys shooting with your phone, adding the QX1 is like giving yourself a creative upgrade. The only problem about it is Sony colors. I mean, this is not the latest generation, so obviously they're not that refined as they are today, but you can still shoot RAW plus JPEG and decide whether to work on your pictures later or not. That's what I do anyway. And since my good Ukrainian people at Skylum allowed me to check out the new Luminar Neo, I thought it would be a good time to pair it to the older camera and see how I like it after being a Capture One guy for a few years. So all the photos you see in this video, I developed in the latest Luminar Neo after the big fall update. And let me tell you, if I was skeptical about all of this AI stuff a few years ago, these days I try to be open-minded and learn as much as I can. And Luminar was as intuitive as it could be after the Lightroom and Capture One. One of the coolest things about QX1 is the ability to change lenses. And we're talking about Sony E-mount system, which means you can go from shooting with the super wide angle to a portrait prime or even crazy macro lens in seconds. And at this point, there are plenty of third-party options for any budget too. This takes it to a whole another level. And I know there's some awesome attachments for your smartphone like moment lenses, but we're talking about real glass that's made for mirrorless cameras, with your phone as a viewfinder, or not, as we'll get to in a minute. In 2014, right around the time when I jumped ship to Fuji completely for my professional work, the Sony QX-1 was cool, but a bit clunky when it came to connecting to your smartphone. But now, in 2024, it's a whole different story. With faster Wi-Fi, 5G, and much better app support, pairing this camera to your phone is so much easier now. You've got full control from your phone, a live preview, and instant sharing if you want to. And with the apps like Luminar Neo and Luminar Mobile, You can squeeze out even more from this, or any other camera for that matter, thanks to all the tools available and AI if that's something you'd like to use. But here's the fun part. You don't even need to connect it to your phone to shoot. If you want to shoot something a little more spontaneous, you can just slap on an autofocus lens and start snapping, and shoot from the hip or else. Literally, you won't see what you're shooting, but sometimes that's part of the fun. Just make sure you've got one of those autofocus lenses on and you're using those semi-auto modes for the exposure, because without live preview, you're pretty much flying blind. And what's gonna happen regardless, until you get used to it at least a little bit, is you are going to miss with this camera. And miss. And miss again. And again. Until you get it right intuitively. Alright, now for one of my favorite hacks for the QX1, the MagSafe trick. The original holder for your phone is a bit clunky, even though sometimes it's convenient, but it's not particularly sturdy, and it's kind of big. So by attaching the MagSafe magnet to the bottom of the QX1 and flipping it upside down, you can mount your smartphone directly to it. So this is how it looks like attached to the bottom of the camera. This way, your shutter button is going to be on the side, and you're going to have the ability to shoot from the waist with your left or your right hand if you want to. Kind of like the Hasselblad 907X for the poor man. But here's where things get fun. Because your camera is now magnetized, you can stick it to all sorts of metal surfaces, and the magnet is pretty strong if you buy the right attachment. Imagine being in the city and attaching it to a street lamp, a fence, or even the side of the car to take a shot from totally new angle. You can control everything remotely with your smartphone, making it perfect for those times when you want to take creative selfie or stage a shot without holding the camera. So basically, all you need is a MagSafe attachment and the proper case if you're not using the iPhone with the MagSafe built in. Just make sure you buy this case with the built-in magnet and not stick-on, because that thing is gonna fall off instantly. This magnet is pretty strong and it allows you to hold your phone without holding the lens. I mean, if the lens is not too big and heavy. It's quirky, it's fun, and it gives you an excuse to be as creative and weird as you want with your shooting style. Plus, it's a conversation starter for sure. Now, here is something to keep in mind. Sony QX-1 and other cameras in its class, like Olympus Air for example, they're pretty rare these days, and they're really niche. So if you're looking for one, you might have to do some searching and waiting, and it could be a bit pricier than it was back in the day. But here's the thing, it's worth it for the unique experience it offers if it's up your valley. There's nothing quite like having an APS-C side sensor attached to your phone, giving you the flexibility of both worlds pretty much. The QX-1 feels niche, but in a good way. It's one of those cameras that make you excited to shoot, because it's just so different from anything else out there. It's a reminder that photography is about play and creativity, not just specs. So let's take a look at some shots that I developed with the Luminar Neo here. As you can see, some of them are upside down, but Luminar is pretty smart to understand that and rotate them without you clicking anything, which is, in my case, with this camera, it's a pretty big plus. So here's some before and after. It's a basic edit, color corrections, optical corrections, all of it is here. And I also tried that sky replacement function, which I've never used before, but I think it's pretty cool because this photo was pretty flat in my opinion. You can also create virtual copies, use layers, copy and paste adjustments from different pictures. I think this is pretty cool, and those things are super essential. All of the features that I've used in Lightroom and later in Capture One, they are here, but they're also sprinkled with some AI stuff, like masking, for example. You're not wasting your time doing this by hand all the time. And you can always correct the masking if AI missed the spot, which in my opinion is pretty cool because I tend to not spend more than 5 minutes on one picture if I can, because that's just no fun in my book. One of my favorite features, and I think this was added recently if I'm not mistaken, it's called color harmony. I think this is pretty cool for somebody who understands how the color work. You can mix and match and come up with your own looks, in addition to the baked-in LUTs or looks or presets that some creators are selling on this app as well. But if you want to tinker with colors a little bit, it's all there. This new feature called color transfer, I think it's also pretty cool. You just add the photo you want to take a look from, and then Luminar will try to recreate that look on the picture you apply it to. I think I'm going to be using this one a lot as well. Let's do my basic editing so you can see how easy it is to work on the photo here. So first, because the lens I used is pretty cheap, 16-50 by Sony, I definitely need to correct it when I'm shooting wide angle. So lens distortion goes first in the optics, and take away vignette a little bit. I think that's pretty good. Then we're gonna correct for those blown highlights because this one was shot blindly. I didn't see what I'm shooting. Smart contrast, exposure, basic stuff. This is basically a developing process. And then I go straight to color harmony. I like more warmer tones for this photo, and I think we lost some contrast here, so I had to add it here too. Play around with color balance with highlights and shadows and stuff like that. I think that looks pretty good already. And the cool thing about it, you can always come back to the raw development, work on it, and then you don't have to redo everything from the beginning. All of those looks that you cooked, they're gonna be applied on top of your raw edit anyway. In this case, I know this lens, and this lens is not particularly sharp, so I also had to add some sharpness in here, in image quality and super sharp option. I used AI and I used universal at low level. I think it worked okay, but sometimes it gives you these weird artifacts, which you can kind of correct if you want, but I just tend to do it on a lower setting. Let's be honest here, this camera and this lens, they're not particularly new and they're not really sharp or well corrected. So you definitely have to work a little bit more on those. But if you're posting on social media, I think you can skip some of the parts. I wouldn't probably do anything else. Then you can export it to the disk, messages or mail, or you can connect to your device and share it directly to your phone. It's not necessarily needs to be the iPhone in this case. Let's take a look at the portrait. I know that Skylum has Aperty app, and you can definitely use that, but for the sake of this video, I wanted to be consistent, so I'm just gonna use Luminar as well. So what I found for myself, I tend to use presets for the portraits more these days because I don't really want to work on all of the skin issues and stuff like that. For me, it's not super necessary because this is not for the professional use and this is just for the sake of the review. So I'm just going to show you a really quick workflow. I go to the presets tab and I really like to use this easy portraits collection. You can definitely find more collections here. They're made by other creators. So some of them cost money, some of them are for free. In this case, I use the vignette, and you can also adjust the intensity of the preset, which is pretty cool. Then you can jump straight into develop, correct some optical issues if you have some with your lens, jump back into tools and work on it just a bit more. But the cool thing is you can see exactly what this preset does, and you can also use all of those sliders and change the preset which was already made if you don't like something. You can relight the scene completely if you want to. You can change the colors partially or completely. All of it is here, and it could look like a lot at some point. It sure is a lot, but at the same time, you don't have to use everything at once. You just know which tools to use for those occasions, and you're golden. So, whether you're looking to add a creative flair to your photography, or you just want to experiment with weird photography setups, or just love the idea of turning your phone into a Hasselblad 907 wannabe without breaking a bank, the Sony QX-1 is definitely a fun camera to get your hands on. If you're into this kind of quirky gear, or you just enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let me know down in the comments what's the quirkiest hack you ever tried. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep shooting.